Okay, I ain't gonna sugarcoat anything here. We all know that Season 5 of All Hail King Julien is amazing. No, I'm not talking about the final season of the show, I'm talking about the 5th season, which is called All Hail King Julien Exiled. Yeah, apparently what happened there was that since Season 5 followed a much more centered storyline compared to the others, Netflix and DreamWorks decided to make this season its own thing and then call it Exiled. And yeah, sure, it works, blah blah blah. I still consider it to be an All Hail King Julien full stop season, and I tend to call it Season 5. But yeah, I guess that the name Exiled is cool too. Anyways, when I did my half-hour episode ranking on the show, I mentioned when I got to the final episode of Exiled the day before tomorrow that the way that this season wraps up feels, and I hate to admit it, a little bit more climactic than the real ending of the show, which happened a season later at the end of Season 6. Not to say that Season 6 was bad, oh no, I mean it's easily one of the best seasons of the show, but I can't shake off the feeling that Exiled could have very well ended All Hail King Julien. Not should've, could've. So let me explain why I feel this way. First of all, it's pretty clear, Season 5 ended on a much grander note. Whilst Season 6's ending was a better conclusion and wrap-up overall to every single character, Season 5's ending episodes had a much bigger climactic pull towards them, and that is mostly due to the insane lead up to the big war of the beasts at the end of the season. You see, in Season 6's conclusion, it's mostly a complete standalone. Like, okay, sure, they concluded most of the main villains leading up to that point, and the finale was a 2-part series, but the tone and all that jazz felt significantly distant to the rest of the season, whereas on the other hand, Season 5 was obviously a much more focused narrative. Like I said, they literally dedicated an entire new section on Netflix to this, and it shows. They added a neat little extra bit to the beginning of each episode that summarizes the previous episode. I mean, it was obvious that this was its own thing, even if it's still just a part of the All Hail King Julien canon. Because of all this building up, the final episodes had to be a perfect climax to the season, and thank God it was. These last 5 or so episodes, starting from episode 9, I Am Farticus, and ending with the final episode of Season 5, The Day Before Tomorrow, was straight up possibly the greatest streak in the entire show. Everything was there. The tone, the action, the heart, the music, it was all there. It was the definition of an Avengers Endgame for animation, but just like Marvel, All Hail King Julien had to keep going. The only difference there is that All Hail King Julien kept on being amazing, whereas Marvel completely fell off. The ending to Season 6, or in other words, the ending to the entire show, was modest and cute. It wasn't anything big or over the top, it was laid back and simple, and usually that wouldn't make a great ending, but this is different though, because the finale to the show is really astonishing, but still, this usually isn't an ending. This is. It's just a big difference in scope. That's my first reason. And the second is that, well, nothing much would change if the show was stopped after Exiled. I said this in the episode ranking for All Hail King Julien, but even though I'm certainly glad that they kept on going and decided to make another season, Exiled wrapped things up in a way that doesn't feel all too different from Season 6's ending. Let's take a look, shall we? So Clover and Sage, they get married at the end of the show, but here you can see that a romance is kind of fully forming between them that's being built up over the entire show up to this point. They almost kiss, and you can see them dancing in perfect harmony and swinging through the vines of the Grand Baobab tree. It feels like they are somewhat beginning a romantic relationship. And even if the show cut off here, you could totally envision them as a couple because of the way that this ends. As for the others, Maurice is given an even better story and conclusion in Season 5 compared to Season 6. He's given such a powerful and conclusive story, but not really here. It's okay though, none of it's an issue, just pointing things out. Mort gets married to Zora in Season 5, and yeah, sure, I mean, it wouldn't really make sense to end here for him because of how ginormous his character was in Exiled, and Julien is given a phenomenal story and arc in both seasons, so yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Season 6 was the overall wrap-up for All Hail King Julien because of Exiled. The way that Exiled finished was so bizarre and wild and off the hook that they needed another season to ease things back to somewhat reality before going into the connection with the Madagascar franchise. Season 6 served as like a breather and a finale for the show, and I think that's for the best. Julien had 2 different sorts of arcs in the 2 seasons. In Season 5, he learned to put mistakes and doubts of himself aside and realized that he is worthy of being a leader. And in Season 6, his overall message is that he isn't always the main character and that he's not the most important person in the world, and that arc is fully concluded here. These are 2 opposite things that Julien learns in both seasons, but that play together together so well, and we needed both of these messages so that Julien's arc can be complete. Ultimately, yeah, I mean, Exiled was more climactic and shared the same amount of information about concluding the show as it is, but we needed season 6 for multiple other reasons, so I think it all balances out in the end. All I'm really trying to say though is that both seasons are amazing, and I really need to rewatch All Hail King Julien again for like the 6th or 7th time. Speaking of which, I've decided to start watching the Penguins TV show, so I'll regularly update on my community posts what I'm thinking about when I watch it. Anyways, later, you bunch of chumps.